Any further comments from any of the board members? No? Can I have a motion to accept the resolution? No.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Item number 2 is 2017-28, 1 Ardsley Avenue East, Warwick, Norton. I try not to hold it too close because
Right.
the minutes we've gotten, I noticed that the stenographer said that there have been some dropouts because sometimes people are holding the microphone too close.
Okay, I will do this. Good evening, my name is Natasha Walco. I'm here from Opachich Architects representing Mr. Warwick Norton and the property at 1 Ardsley Avenue East. We're back having addressed the comments from the engineer's office to show the limit of disturbance as well as show the trees on the property in order to guarantee that the location of the construction is not going to interfere with any of that. And we also addressed the zoning variance, which we got approval for at the last meeting. And so we're seeking approval to move forward to ARB.
Any comments from any of the board members? Any comments from anyone in the public on this matter? No, I think Mary Ann, you have a resolution on this?
Yeah. In October 2017, Warwick Norton applied for a site development plan approval to modify a patio and construct a trellis on his property at 1 Ardsley Avenue East. The existing coverage on the property exceeds the maximum permitted, and the proposed improvements would change the configuration and therefore requires a variance from the ZBA. The ZBA granted the variance at its meeting on October 24th. Hunt Engineering reviewed the plans, and in a memorandum dated October 3rd listed several issues with the site plan, all of which were satisfactorily addressed in a subsequent submission. The Planning Board held a public hearing on October 4th and November 1st. It's a Type 2 action under SECRA. Resolved that the Planning Board grants site development plan approval of the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Norton Residence, prepared by Opachich Architects.
Can I have a motion to accept the resolution?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Well,
Yes.
One goes over there.
Okay, thank you.
third item is 2017-26, Astorbuck Properties LLC, 2 South Edge Street.
John Malone, Ferguson Malone Architects, representing Astorbuck Properties. We had a few comments from engineering that were picked up, and we are awaiting the easement agreement.
Okay, right, that was comment number 2 from Han Engineering. I believe the binding document should be provided. I guess you'll have to provide all those documents before the building inspector will issue a building permit.
Right.
Okay. Any comments from any of the board members?
No.
Any comments from anyone in the public on this matter? No. Mary Ann, you have a resolution?
Yeah, in September 2017, Astorbuck Properties, on behalf of Hudson Gray, applied for site development plan approval to construct parking spaces that would be located on both the Hudson Gray property at 2 South Astor and the adjoining property at 50 South Buckout, owned by Stanford Bridge, as well as a retaining wall and other improvements on the Stanford Bridge property. Han Engineering reviewed the plans, and in a memorandum dated September 6th, listed a number of issues with the site plan, most of which were satisfactorily addressed in subsequent submissions. Planning Board held a public hearing on the application on September 6th, October 4th, and November 1st. The site's located in the View Preservation District, but the proposed improvements would not impact the view of the Hudson River from neighboring properties. It's a Type 2 action under SECRA. This one is a Type 2 action not because it's residential, it's because it's expansion of a non-residential facility involving less than 4,000 square feet with no change in zoning, therefore requires no environmental review. Now therefore be it resolved that the Planning Board grants site development plan approval of the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Hudson Loft Parking, prepared by Ferguson Malone Architecture, subject to A, prior to issuance of a building permit, submitting documentation satisfactory to the village attorney that Hudson Gray LLC has the right to construct and permanently locate the parking area on the Stanford Bridge property, and that it has a permanent access easement over the Stanford Bridge property, and that the Stanford Bridge property has a permanent access easement over the Hudson Gray property, and B, complying with the Hahn memorandum dated October 31st.
And can I have a motion to accept the resolution?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next item is 2017-13, Stanford Bridge LLC, 50 South Bucknell Street.
Good evening, my name is Salah Foda with Christoph Riedner Architect, who are here for Stanford Bridge LLC, the owners of 50 South Bucknell Street. And this is a follow-up from our previous meeting, and we did respond to the Hahn Engineering all add-ins, and we do not anticipate any negative impact on the floodplain or the water plane or the flood prevention.
Well, I think there's also some wetland.
It is a watercourse.
Watercourse, okay. I think also though, again, with this staircase, you're changing the staircase though. Also, the staircase right now comes down one flight and then comes back.
Doesn't work.
It reverses itself 180 degrees. Now what you're saying is on the proposed new,
Yes, it's going down the street.
now how does that work in relation to the door to the yoga zone? The entrance?
It is about 6 feet from the opening of the door. There are double doors, and it's 6 feet away from the rough opening of the masonry.
So what happens when the door's open? When the door is open,
We'll
do
make
people
sure
crash into
the
it?
left door would be fixed, and the right door would be open, but I do not anticipate any kind of,
Well, if it's 6 foot from the door has to be bigger than 6 foot to be a problem, which I doubt it is.
well,
You said it's
a
6
double-
foot from the door.
Yeah, right, it's 6 foot from the beginning of the masonry opening.
Yeah, so
The
how
last-
big is the door?
Doors are 6 feet, that's double doors,
I mean, the whole door, but each swinging part of it is how?
that's 3 feet.
So it's not gonna hit the staircase. If you open
Even.
One door isn't going to.
one door is not gonna hit the staircase. Because if the staircase is 6 foot away and you have a 3,
But if we need to fix it, that left door, we'll have to just address the open space.
okay.
Any other comments from any of the board members?
Yeah, I seem to recall we asked why you were changing it, okay? And what, if any, changes were gonna happen on the exterior where the stair was.
Actually, it's improving the look of the exterior. And if you're coming down, if you're making a left from Main Street toward the building on South Bucknell Street, once you make that left, you will see a stair flying out in space. By bringing it back toward the building would look nicer, and yet would not too imposing.
Are you planning any improvements on the exterior in front of the stair?
We call that, it's a little, we call that for a black top, which clear the pathway to these doors. Of a car that would be able to drop off. Thanks.
So you're putting in parking in front of this, is that what you're doing?
2 spots.
It's already paved.
It's already paved, it's just 3 feet away from the stair that is gonna be blacked out.
Why don't you go to the photographs that you have there?
And I recall a coverage issue, has that been resolved?
Yes, it's an increase of 0.3%, and it's not really major increase.
So is parking permitted right now by that staircase? Is parking permitted right now by the staircase, the way it turns back on itself?
It's permitted in this area and a drop off cars will stop there to do all things.
So are you gaining any parking spaces by doing this?
It could be considered a spot or two.
Or is it going to be striped or anything, or is it just going to be left as a concrete pad?
Eventually, all that would be addressed in the master plan that is already going through the town.
But I think when you were here months and months ago, we asked them for these same questions. And it sounds to me like we're getting the same answers as we got months and months ago. So I'm not sure, did you at all discuss this with your client, or?
Yes, we did. The reason that took us few months to get back to you, took some time to get the title reports for all the properties. That took a lot of time. And we did talk about this. The owner would rather have a blacktop in case for additional parking and for a drop-off as well, and would clear the area as well.
Well, how do you, if you have the parking there, how do you just back out right onto South Buckout? Or is there a way, are you able to turn it all in there and to be able to come out nose first rather than the rear of the car coming out to Buckout Street?
Oh, that picture on top there,
Correct me if I'm
car
wrong.
is, doesn't that block the, it's curved there, you don't have a curb cut.
Over to the left.
To the south, there is.
Yeah, to the south, but not,
No, to the right, to the left there is a back corner.
Technically,
Oh,
the
yeah.
parking is not going to go beyond this point. There is plenty of space between the building to the curb.
where about is the
And
curb
we
cut?
back up and
Is the curb cut even with the current foot of the steps?
Again, the parking is not going to continue all the way out to there.
How you-
Beyond
How can you
the
say
curb
that?
cut.
Where's the curb cut, do you know?
It's this.
You know it?
So it's right there. Put your finger on the wall, right above the bucket. Right above the bucket. Right there's the curb cut from there.
That's from here.
Right. And goes out, almost not quite that far, but
Yeah,
yeah.
and where's the steps? I'm not seeing.
Yeah, the steps.
That's just.
No, the steps on the building he's asking for.
Oh, steps on the stair?
No, there
The
they are.
staircase.
I say, it's point of the curb cut again? Oh, so the curb cut is,
But again, whatever market is
Yeah,
going to
pull
be,
straight
is
into the
not going to be between the stair and the curb. The parking will be here.
yeah, well, the curb cut doesn't let you
And-
drive right up to the stairs, unless you.
No,
pull
no,
in.
you cannot go and turn like perpendicular to the
Right.
stair.
Mhm.
It just stays in front. And then
May be able to go in
without
parallel to the stair, but, yeah, okay,
But able someone to drop off and come back.
right.
Come back straight and go to the street.
Mhm.
As long as the car isn't parked there already. I mean, where you have the curb cut now, if somebody were to pull in straight ahead, nose towards the building, you may not be able to maneuver in there to get closer to the yoga zone front door from that concrete pad that you show in the lower left-hand corner. Yeah, right.
Because curb cut will keep people from pulling straight in.
Well, but the curb cut is far north, though, that you won't. I mean, you can pull straight in now, but you're not gonna, if you pull straight in and then turn to the right by the staircase, and somebody comes in behind you, you may be blocked. That's
That's a problem, that's not our problem.
Right. Any other comments from any of the board members?
No.
Why, just putting back, like, as
As
is? What's
Again,
the
it's,
rationale behind that? I mean,
rationale is to clear the front of the building more, and it allows for passage through for a drop-off.
Right, what bothers me is that it's in front of the other building, and it blocks a window, and the door is closed. To me, I don't, not thrilled about that.
It's already blocking 2 windows, it's not gonna block more windows. So it's,
I think the new stairs are more attractive than the current pipe stairs. pipe railing.
Any other comments? No? Any,
It's an elevation.
what are they, metal stairs like the ones that are there now?
No, they're gonna be more articulated, more traditional. And it,
Steel stairs?
yeah, right, it's gonna be steel.
And what kind of treads on them? Are they gonna be the same metal treads with just
It's,
Yeah.
it's gonna be closed
Raised.
metal treads.
closed metal treads? Because it's open now.
Yes. Reason for that is to close the gap for the 4 inches required by the code.
Okay, so are these stairs that are used year-round, or are they just emergency staircases? Because
They are-
there's stairs that are not covered.
They are emergency for egress stair.
Don't they have to be covered by code?
Yes.
It's not an emergency egress, it's a regular egress. Not an emergency egress. It's just an egress.
It's egress, yes.
So it's a convenience stair.
It's a convenience stair.
So it's not really needed.
No, it is needed for egress.
No, there's a huge
There's a
distinction.
huge distinction. It's a convenience stair. If it was emergency egress, it would need to have a roof on it.
Correct, that's,
Right now, the calculations are the way the space is configured inside a convenience stair. If they reconfigure it, it'll change. They have a staircase, so I'll show them where the staircase is. Just on the side of the building, just show them where it goes.
What do you mean?
Just, there's a staircase on both sides of the floor, and there's one in the middle.
Oh, you mean on the plan?
That meets the requirements for the code.
for the occupancy that they have right now. If the occupancy increases, then they'll want this to be a egress. And then that'll
You
be,
know, there's plenty of room for, it more than exceeds the occupancy right now.
okay, so that's a little bit different than the way it was presented, at least to me, as I understood it, as this is an egress stair.
But they do use it.
Right, but it's not
Is
a
it- there's a huge-
mandatory
Like we
egress.
said, there's a huge distinction between an egress stair and a convenience stair. This is what is deemed a convenience stair. It's not required by code for emergency exit.
Yeah. At one
There's no-
time in the configuration, it was an egress stair. Long time ago.
Okay, so it's now
It's not enough.
not.
Right.
So this is a stair that in essence isn't necessarily needed.
Yeah. But it may be needed in the future. They're constantly reconfiguring the building.
But they can come back then if, see here, I always thought this was required. And we questioned why you changed it, replacing Klein, you came in here and said, it's dire, it's this, it's that, emergency. In effect, it wasn't described as a convenience stair, it was described as an egress stair.
It's, the tenants use the stair.
I understand, and that's for convenience, okay? So I think, this board's got to figure out if they want this stair or not. And I would say if it's a convenience stair, I don't see how their new configuration is so much better. And B, if they're so concerned about the aesthetics of this, then they shouldn't even have the stair.
Stair is gonna be needed for the building, and at one point would be considered egress. And it's a large building, and cannot just,
You see, that's the problem with this project, is that you're coming in what I call piecemeal. You're saying this, and then you say that, and it's only about this, and then it's only about that. But clearly, it sounds like to me that you have an intention that you're not necessarily presenting right now as a master plan, okay? It sounds to me like you want to use this stair, get the stair approved as is, and then miraculously come back at some other time to say, now I want to make this an egress stair. And to do that, I need to put a cover over it. Okay, so to me, you should come in here clean with what you, so that it makes more sense, at least to me. But to come in here when we questioned you months ago about your configuration and told you about our concern about additional parking and such, and how we weren't interested in that, that if it was about landscaping and making the building look better, we were all for it. Now we find out, or at least I found out, this stair isn't even required. It was never represented that way, okay? It was represented by you saying that this stair was deteriorated and it was needed for egress, okay? And that means something, okay? If you said this stair is deteriorated and we use it as for convenience for the tenants in here, that means something else. So I'm not, it's no news to me.
I want a copy of the master plan.
Excuse me, I did not intend to present it as differently what it is needed. It's a large building, larger square footage, and one of the tenant on the second floor has approximately 18,000 square feet, and this stair is considered an egress slash convenient in a way. So they take a shortcut to go to Main Street, but yet it is, considering the size of the building, it is an egress stair.
Is this staircase going to be used instead of the one on the side of the building that is totally blocked off and falling apart? The concrete is in shambles. It's unusable from what I can see.
From the rotunda, they come down the rotunda, there's a stair inside the rotunda, and they go on the side of the building to the parking lots, and they go down the driveway. There's a stair next to the driveway.
Which is
So
cordoned off right now.
That stair that is closed off, that landscape steps stair, is not really needed because, and they just come down from the rotunda and they take the walkway down to the parking lot here, or they take the other steps and go down further toward the
So the stairs in the middle that are next to the two buildings.
Yeah, right,
Isn't
it's
needed.
not needed.
Where are the stairs you're talking about, Sheila, the ones that are
Right on
deteriorated?
the side
So
of-
right here,
next
Right
to the
there.
restaurant.
yes,
Okay.
sit down.
So then where are the other staircases for the building? For the egress?
In the middle.
So here is one, that's the one we're trying to replace. There is one in the middle, in here.
No, you should describe what is required as code compliant egress. There's a big distinction between that, what is required by code to get out in case of a fire, and what is for convenience of your tenants to get out. That's the distinction you should make.
This is the ground floor. On the second floor, there is a tenant occupying the space in here. And this is considered as an egress for them, and yet they use it to get a quick access to go to Main Street instead of going to the front, on the side here or to the front. Third floor, it's considered an egress as well.
Well, I guess we're going back to several months ago. I think what George is talking about is we had asked to see what's the overall plan for this elevation with this facade of the building in terms of everything there, not just in terms of the staircase. You're changing the staircase, and we asked that information, and it hasn't been given to us yet. And the question is, again, if it's not a staircase that's needed, then do we need to approve the staircase at this point?
It is needed to the building, considering the size of the building.
See, I would argue that if this is not an egress stair, and that it's a convenience stair, that you should be making this even more decorative and less about obscuring windows and such like that, because you have the ability to do such, and you're trying to create something for your tenants that is more monumental than just pretending like this is an egress stair, which again, there's clear distinctions between a convenience stair and an egress stair. And this isn't an egress stair because it isn't covered. At least that's how it is in the
If
city.
it's a new construction, you would have the roof covered on it, but
Well,
this is replacing
yeah.
existing.
It doesn't have to be covered if it was an emergency egress there. If it had the treads, not solid treads, if they had
Metal grate.
The metal grate.
Oh, okay.
And
New York City code requires even
Yeah,
or,
that's New York City. This is, but yeah, you can have an open metal grate. You've seen around.
okay.
This is big.
And that doesn't need a roof on it.
But now,
You really don't want to see a roof in the front of that building.
No,
but the proposed staircase is not open, though.
No, it's a solid tread.
It's a solid trip, right.
This is a stair is identical to the one that Bridges Street just installed for the deck for the Indian restaurant. Just nice, clean, good-looking stair and up to code. And it's not just a quick egress stair, it's a presentable stair and it looks good, improves what's.
yeah, what they did, which was completely different to than this, is they came in for really the deck, okay?
Well,
And
I'm talking about quality, that's what I'm talking about, that's.
yeah,
that's
I think if
quality
you
as
look
that.
at how that stair and how that configuration of that deck was done, which I highly supported, it was done in a very sympathetic way to the building. I'm not going to say that this is.
What's the board's take on this? In terms of what's being proposed?
I don't have any problem.
Okay. Hillary?
I'm not a fan.
I'm sorry?
I'm not a fan.
You're not supportive of what they're proposed to do. Sheila?
I'm okay with it. It's been there, that stairway has been there for quite a while, and just kind of get used to it.
Okay. Well, I'm okay with it too. I think going down that way at this.
And those balustrades are going to be installed, it's not going to be a pipe rail.
No, this is gonna be high quality, a bicket, really.
That's not just an artist's conception, that's the
This
balustrades.
is the construction document. This is a detail of it, this is a closer section through it. It's not a handsome stair.
So what is the railing? The railing is metal, wrought iron, steel,
That's raw iron,
wrought
yeah,
iron?
bicket, raw iron.
It'll be painted black?
Yes, it's black powder.
And the treads?
The
Same thing?
treads, yeah, black. It's a diamond blade.
All right. Any comments from any members in the audience? No? 3-2 at this point, so, Mary Ann, if you have a resolution.
Yeah, I did, I just,
Well, we hear the resolution, we'll take a vote on it.
yeah. In June 2017, Stamford Bridge applied for site plan approval to construct a new steel stairway on its property at 50 South Buckout, which is in the View Preservation District. The proposed construction requires both a floodplain development permit and a freshwater wetlands permit. Han Engineering reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated June 6th listed several issues with the site plan which were satisfactorily addressed in a subsequent submission. Planning Board held a public hearing on the application on June 7th and November 1st. The proposed stairway would not impact the view of the Hudson River from neighboring properties or the adjacent right-of-way. Han reviewed the floodplain development and freshwater wetlands permit applications and in a memorandum dated October 31st determined that all requirements for the permits are met. The action's type 2 action under SEQA. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board grants floodplain development and wetlands permits as well as site development plan approval of the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Proposed Egress Stair Replacement Stamford Bridge prepared by Christoph Wiedner.
You have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
So,
Let's move.
you don't have to, did you vote
She
aye?
voted, she voted no.
Yeah, so don't sign it.
No,
Oh, I thought you were signing it, yeah.
She's just passing it.
passing it along. And it was a,
Add any consideration for the open grate instead of the solid thread?
They should take into consideration if they can in the future alter the existing stair.
Though it wouldn't qualify as an emergency stair. Right.
Thank you, sir.
One over there. The next item is 2017-11, the total and take 23 Dearman Close.
I did good the first time around, right? Good evening. I'm here from Opecheech Architects, representing Chris Tay and Lucy Couture and the property at 23 Dearman Close. Since the previous meeting, we have secured our driveway easement, and we have submitted final driveway, which takes advantage of that easement, and we have addressed all of those issues. We did receive the comments from Han Engineering this morning about the driveway concern, and realized that there was one contour, which was the 446, which I'll pull up the engineer's drawings to make it clear. Okay. So there was a...
Just hold the microphone a little bit farther away.
Okay, thank you. There was a contour 446 that was shown in going across here, which was creating the issue both with the ponding in towards the garage and also the excess driveway. And we corrected that. That was actually not supposed to be there. So you just go from 444, and then you're tapering up to the garage, and then up to here, which eliminates the ponding issue. And then we're tapering in here within our property and within the easement, so that addresses the two concerns with the driveway.
And what the driveway then, it sheet flows off to the east then?
West. Yeah, chief flows to the turn stream.
In front of the garage?
No.
No, right
the
here.
other one.
Oh, that, okay.
Right, because we're higher here, which was what the intent was, at 444.9, and then 440 here, and then down here to the turn stream, which is just under the 442.
I thought you said it was the 446 contour is being cut down.
It was previously shown.
No, I don't have to turn the page.
Okay, it was previously shown coming through. It was intended. It's coming. It gets picked up here at the back.
It was
Yeah.
erroneously reported as 446.
Yes, correct.
Because if you had to cut if it was 446 and you had to cut it, then it would be a ridge line there. Okay.
Right.
Any other comments from any of the board members? No? Any comments from anyone in the public on this matter? No? Marion, you have a resolution on this?
Everything cost me like
Times December.
10 years of my life when I first got here, but that's okay.
Jeez, I said I forgot to do it. In June 2017, Lucy Couture and Christopher Tague applied for site plan approval to construct a single-family residence at their property at 23 Dearman Close. The initial plan showed a significant amount of the development in the conservation easement located on the property. In August 2017, new plans were submitted that moved the house and other structures out of the conservation easement. Han Engineering reviewed the plans and in a memorandum dated August 1st listed a number of issues with the site plan which were addressed in subsequent submissions and reviewed by Han in memoranda dated September 6th, September 29th, and October 27th. Lucille Munns, the village's landscape consultant, reviewed the plans, consulted with Rivy Oren, the applicant's landscape architect, and had only minor comments, which were resolved with Rivy Oren. The driveway to 23 Dearman Close is located in part on 25 Dearman Close, the property to the east of applicants. because the subdivision creating the two lots showed that location of the driveway, and therefore an easement between the owners of 23 Dearman Close and 25 Dearman Close is necessary, and such a signed easement was submitted to the planning board in October 2017. Just so you know, I did review the easement, and it's fine, it grants it. The planning board held a public hearing on the application on June 7th, August 2nd, September 6th, October 4th, and November 1st. It's type 2 action under SECRA. Now therefore be resolved that the planning board grants site development plan approval of the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Te Kutulo Residence prepared by Opachik Architects, and the plans prepared by Hudson Engineering, and the landscape plan prepared by Revy Oren, subject to, first, prior to receiving a building permit, submitting proof of filing with the Westchester County Clerk of the easement agreement between the owners of 23 Dearman Close and 25 Dearman Close, and second, complying with the items listed in October 27th Town Memorandum, which Natasha
Yes.
mentioned,
Email.
dealt with tonight.
Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You're approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You get a walk around your desk.
No, I asked if you can. Thank you.
Next item is 2016-23, Berry and Stewart, 68 Riverview Road.
And this,
Natasha, Natasha.
Oh, I have to, I'm sorry.
and then they would have taken it back.
I think this one, right? Okay.
That's yours.
Thank you.
Souvenir.
Do I need what? I need a friend go, I need tequila.
I like to imagine someone dropping a mattress. That's probably why.
I think it's just old code.
I think even,
I got burned on it, that's why. I know.
It always has to be.
I know even in Connecticut, you have to have an emergency staircase has to be covered.
It's about snow protection, and maybe it's 2015. I think it's a change, a recent change to allow for.
It's from the ICC code.
Yes,
In
that's
the
what-
green book, it always has it covered.
Right.
New York City has their own amendments to the ICC code, and they're using, I still think, the 2006 ICC version.
Yeah, but
New York State.
that's a whole other conversation.
John Malone, Ferguson Malone Architecture, representing Stuart Berry. We had a comment from the board that we addressed. There was a concern about some hardscape that was covering the root zone of the tree, which we removed. I don't believe there were any other issues, and I think we addressed them all.
Yeah, I think, yes. Han memorandum says you addressed all of their comments, and I had the comment about the steps underneath the tree.
And I reviewed them with the client, and they were fine removing them.
Okay. Any other comments from any of the board members? Any comments from anyone in the public on this matter? No? Marion, you have a resolution on this?
Yeah, whereas on August 3rd, 2016, Susan Stewart and J.F. Berry received site development plan approval to construct a retaining wall and extend an existing patio on their property at 68 Riverview Road. And in October 2017, applicants applied for site development plan approval for revisions to the approved site plan, including an expansion of the proposed patio to accommodate a fire pit and built-in barbecue. Han reviewed the plans and in a memo dated October 3rd made minor comments which were adequately addressed in a subsequent submission. The planning board was concerned that the proposed stone pavers at the base of the existing tree would harm the tree, and the subsequent submission removed the stone pavers. The planning board held a public hearing on October 4th and November 1st. It's a type 2 action under SECRA. Therefore, be it resolved that the planning board grants the application for site development plan approval of the improvements reflected in the drawings entitled Stewart Berry Residence prepared by Ferguson Malone Architecture.
We have a motion to approve. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You're approved. Thank you. The next item is 2017-25, Emily Burley, 20 East Clinton Avenue.
evening, John Scabelli representing Emily and Benjamin Burley for the application for 20 East Clinton Ave. We were here a couple of months ago, just a quick overview of the project. We're proposing an addition to a single-family dwelling, which is going to consist of a two-car garage with additional master bedroom space at the floor above. I think one of the biggest comments from last time was addressing some of the coverage issues. And under this application, we are going to apply for two variances, one being a side yard setback variance because the existing dwelling is currently at a 0-foot setback. We're not adjusting that, but it's an existing condition. And then the second variance would be for additional coverage. We did coverage calculations, and in the neighborhood there are several adjacent properties that have even higher coverage than what we're proposing. And we're proposing that this would be a benefit to the neighborhood and to the actual existing structure that's there and dilapidated home.
Any comments from any of the board members? Any comments from anyone in the public?
Can I just ask about the driveway is very narrow.
Yeah, so there's actually an easement that comes down, and then the property actually starts back here. So
They're in the front, there are houses on either side, and it's a one-car, it's a one-car pass.
correct, yeah. This other two actually show up there.
Right. It's that little white house in the back.
Exactly, yeah.
So, I have a question regarding this. I was looking at the table that you gave us regarding the coverage and the FAR and what the other lots in the neighborhood in terms of coverage. And I noticed most of the lots in this neighborhood, probably all these lots in the village, and probably most of these houses predate the zoning code. And I think that's why a number of them have coverages that are over the permitted coverage, because they predate the zoning. And I think here we have, you have a lot that's substandard actually, because you don't even have road frontage with this lot. You have an easement over other people's lots to get to the street. My concern is that really you're asking for a coverage that is 70% more than what's there now. And you're asking for 67 square feet that's over the permitted coverage within the ordinance. So my question would be, why do you need to be 67 square feet over the coverage? Why couldn't you come in for a site plan that is under the permitted coverage?
That was discussed. I mean, the biggest issue was the kind of like a two-car garage. And we basically made it as narrow as possible where the framing could work, and actually the openings have two separate garage openings. You can see on S102. It's really tight even for a two-car garage. That was really the driving factor, where once we got more narrow than that, it wasn't allowing for the proposed intention of what the addition would be, which is the two-car garage.
So with 67 square feet, you could, actually, you have two, what you're proposing are two rectangles there, two squares that are offset slightly. And so you have, your new rectangle is slightly set back farther from the front yard and goes into the backyard. I mean, it's 67 square feet on a building, a new building that's being proposed, that's only about 3 feet taking off the back. Why couldn't you just take that off the back and end up with a building that meets the zoning?
Yeah, I mean, what was intended was to have a separate room in the back. So basically, and right now it's at 9 feet, so it would become a 6-foot wide room. We did look at that option. That was discussed, but essentially that room would become, a 6 foot wide.
Okay, well, I have a problem with it, because it just seems to me, you're coming with such a large increase in coverage here, that it seems to me you should be able to meet code here. And I think what you ought to do then is good, as far as I'm concerned, is go to the ZBA first. So I don't want to approve anything at this board until the ZBA has said that they're okay with the increase in, the variance for the coverage factor.
Okay, so we'd be able to get the referral to go.
You can refer, you can just go if you want and take your chances with the ZBA at this point. But at this time. I don't have the other board members
No,
here.
not without the zoning board seeing it.
Given what you said, I agree.
Would there be any other comments if, besides if, you know, if we were to
Well,
reduce
I think-
coverage that?
No, I
address
think,
that?
again, because of the coverage too, I think you're spreading this house out so far that the one tree on the site that gives you some screening besides the hedges from the house to the west of you is going to be taken down as part of this. So you're even losing screening here. So it seems you're really overbuilding on this lot. It's a substandard lot to begin with. You have an easement to get out to the street. You have an easement that's an alleyway between two houses, and that easement doesn't even include the entire alleyway. You're actually 2 feet off from Lot D there, or the House D. You're 2 feet off of that property, and then your easement actually covers the house to the east of you, to the east of that easement on Lot E. So, I mean, it really is a substandard situation, and I think what I would want to that really meets the code rather than trying to exceed the code at this point. Again, as I said, the other houses that I see in this neighborhood that exceed the coverage because they were built up probably 100 years ago on substandard lots for today's code, and probably if they came in for coverage or additional or variances to expand houses, I'd have a problem with those too at this point, because you're on substandard lots there. So, that's my take on it. Do you have a comment, Hillary?
There's a house.
It sets back.
The house next door,
But isn't it on the same line? It's the same.
House C to the west is not on a substandard lot. It's on a larger lot, and it's on a flagpole lot, so it does have access to the street.
Yeah, it's personally, you know, it is, but it is what you call a substandard, but it's a subset of a building. Like, I drove by, I couldn't find it, and so that told me something right away. B, it is in the back. It's an outbuilding, and I finally found it, and it's not in the best of shapes. And what they're doing, based on what I saw on that, I was like, okay, so A, I'm not going to see it from the street, and B, they are trying to improve this lot. And yeah, I saw about the 2-car garage, and I said, okay, well, that's what they're doing. That's what this is about. So I didn't hear anything that raised my hair.
Well, the people in front, though, are going to be seeing a house that's twice as large. Lots D and E are going to be,
Right,
they're going to have that house in their backyard now.
Yeah, and look
House that's
what's
twice
surrounding
the
that too, so.
Well, I think if you go out there, I've been out there, I walked the lot too, so you don't really see that much from that lot.
You went down the driveway?
I walked in, yeah.
Okay.
Actually spoke to the woman who lives in the house in Lot D, and she was telling me that I guess that house was moved there a number of years ago. I guess when the Tiffany's had their works up here, and this whole area was really a site where people who worked for the Tiffany's were living at some point. So. Anyway, so that's what I say. So if you want to take it to the ZBA, feel free to do that, and then you can come back and we'll take it up once the ZBA has looked at it. All right? Okay. Thanks. Next item is 2017-15, Roy Luce, 24 South Buckout Street.
I doesn't have an easel, so I think I'm going to try that. My name's Roy Rose. I'm one of the property owners, 24 South Buckout, and we are proposing off-street parking. We'll try to get this to scale. Sure if I can do this.
I've got a clip.
Thank you, honey.
Okay, so basically, we reconfigured our parking plan, and we revised it significantly. So where my engineer, we got involved in getting 5 spaces, vehicles off the street, which has a serious lack of parking, and eliminating only 1 parking space in front. Whereas before, we anticipated 4 spaces just nose in. And the previous comments from the engineers were saying that they felt it wasn't safe for vehicles to back up into the street. Basically, what we're going to add some fill material. I'm not an engineer, so I probably can't get real specific about things, but we should have adequate drainage and all the basic. There's a 8% slope on the driveway with pervious asphalt, and we're going to have a gravel in the parking area, which general grade is about 5% or a little bit less, depending on how we have it sloped, with 2 drains on each side. So that's pretty much the project in a.
You're gonna build a retaining wall at the end there, and where do the drains go?
Yes, we're going to have retaining wall, a block type of retaining wall in the back, and also up along this side because there's a grade drop to the existing house, which, as we have the sidewalk, it's already here. We have an existing wall, which is an old stone wall. And on this side, we're only carrying it up to here, where the grade gets pretty close. We're just going to use curbing. And where there's a difference of 2 or 3 feet, we're going to also add this block type of retaining wall, and also out in front here where it's a steeper slope. We're changing the grade over on this side too. We're tooling the dirt so there's a more gradual, gentle slope in general, even away from where the driveway is. Right now, it's a lot higher on this side. A little irregular, and there's like 2 little plateaus. I guess they're sort of like terraced areas, you know. That's,
Where'd you say the drains go, and what's to the west?
Yeah, the drains in the rear.
What's to the west?
Voltec. And then, okay, back here, it's just the rear of the yard.
I know, but what's the other side of the yard?
Okay, back here?
Yes, there.
Okay, the village has a parking lot down here. And there's a retaining wall that's also owned by the village, and they even own the chain link fence, which was probably built 50 years or longer ago. So it may have not been built by the village, probably the factory that used to own that property. So yeah, there's no impacts on anything except just on site, and it's down lower, so it's not even visible from the street unless you really look. And we're also going to protect all the trees that exist there as well.
So that was one of the questions. I mean, there's a 40-inch tree at the rear of your property.
Yeah.
And I would say where that wall is located, you're probably within the drip line of that tree.
Yes, part of it would be over the drip line, although we got a wall on the other side. And I know somewhat about arboriculture. I've had some schooling years ago, and it is an elm. It's not in real good health, although I don't want to remove it. I mean, it could be monitored, but I'm not sure how much longer. There's a maple adjacent to it. The maple's in poor health. We may consider removal. We're not saying, yeah, we want to just take it out. But eventually that maple tree will probably have to go. It's half, or a portion of it's already dead, and there's decay in it.
Okay, well, I think there was also some concern, Doug, you had some comments too about the other 2 trees in terms of the grading that lines of those trees?
Yeah, I actually spoke to Roy earlier about it. It appears that there's like a foot or 2 of fill on it, and then you were thinking maybe you'd have to extend the wall up or somehow to
Right. There shouldn't be any fill. I mean, generally, the Japanese maple is a very tough species. I mean, it grows all over the country, and it's healthy. And the root system does spread out, but we're going to have the wall up towards it. But there's a great difference here. you know, that's why there's a wall right here, because you got a difference of over 2 feet between the proposed grade and what's
Is that wall in the
existing.
drip line too, that one?
This one would be more or less in the Japanese maple, but again, like in these other trees, I'm pretty confident that the tree will probably endure no adverse effects, considering, you know, how old it is and how healthy it is. In my opinion, the tree is very healthy.
Well, I think you have 4 trees there, it might be worth, maybe have an arborist take a look at the trees and see which ones really, what the health conditions are of the 4 trees and which ones, you know, are in good health and which ones are not, up front, rather than waiting after the construction happens and then waiting to see what happens to the trees. And I think the other thing too is, I applaud you that you're taking 4 or 5 spaces off, 4 or 5 cars off the street, because Buckout Street is tight there. But that was a question too, Mr. Russo. I think the last time you came in, it was 4 spaces, and you've widened it now to 5 spaces. And it just seems there's a lot of unused area there that's going to be now gravel or asphalt. And just look, is there some other way? Can you have your engineer look at, you know, some other alignment of the spaces, and maybe you don't have to have as much impervious surface created?
Right. This is really the best option. We looked at several options. It would all involve tree removals. And this is possibly compromising the trees, but not dealing with tree removal.
Well, is there any way of pulling the wall on the west closer to, you know, moving it farther away from those trees, moving it farther east? Because it seems that other than those, you know, where you have your, I guess your Coltech units there, it seems there's a lot of open space there that it just seems wasted. I mean, the cars are going to be parked all the way at the back towards those trees, and then you have a lot of open space there that's just paved. So
Well,
is there some other configuration that might work a little bit better and not, you know?
Well, I
need
mean,
to
other
use so much space?
configuration, having them on this site, but we're not really changing the area, because now that they want them nose first coming out, you have to have a backup space. Whether it's on the side or if it's directly to the back, we still have to have that space in order to back out the driveway. You know, I could have had the driveway over here, I could have had the same spaces, or I could have had the cars facing this way, but they still would require this space, 18 feet. I'm using examples of existing parking lots in town, some of the municipal lots. I measured spaces, I was really curious, there's a little deviation. The street spaces are very small, they're very tight. Most of the spaces I've seen had about 18 feet between the stripe and the back of the curb. And the car has to back out, especially if it's a longer vehicle, and make 1 to 2 turns to get the nose of the car to turn around to go out. And I added a survey that showed the whole street scenario, the whole block, had all the driveways in it, and all the spaces that were in those driveways. And everybody backs out except for one lot on the corner of Main Street. And we have about 18 feet, and they have a garage right there, and they get right up into that garage. They have just barely enough room to back up and to get out. And so that's the information that I'm basing it on. I'm not an engineer, so I'm not really totally knowledgeable on the code. What I've read, it seems to be what most people have, that they get by with okay.
Do you have a question?
What's to the north? What lot is to the north?
Yeah, this next door over here.
Yeah.
Where's the residence at? Single family.
Where's their backyard?
Their backyard is abuts here.
So they're gonna look at a 5-car
Actually,
parking lot.
Probably not too much, because of the maple and the house, although they would be looking at it up here in the front, which it would be more visible, plus it would be more visible to
But
the
we didn't
street.
approve what was up front, though.
See, the up front here, it's more visible to the general street, whereas back here, it's
Is
less
there any
visible.
screening for the neighbor, so he doesn't have to look?
And there is no existing screening. That could always be added.
What made you go to 5 spaces from the original concept of 4 spaces?
We had extra room in the back. And also that there's 3 apartments, you know, we're assuming that 2 families, we've always had 2 families that had 2 vehicles, and the people downstairs, even on the lower floor, smaller unit, have 2 cars. So we're still taking 5 off the street. And, you know, no matter which way I do it, yeah, the cost is a lot more, significantly higher. The cost is a factor too, for us at least. But we want it to look reasonably good. And
And was there the usual notification of neighbors with the cards? Did we get any comments from any?
And it's just noise cold.
the neighbors are in favor of it. The parking's very tight, and they don't have to compete against a big hassle for them, that they have to lug their groceries 2 blocks sometimes. You know, it's. And there used to be a 2-car garage on this property in the front that was right above the property line and then just beyond the back of the sidewalk. It was torn down probably about 30-some years ago.
Well, there's a 4-car garage almost directly across the street from you, which doesn't seem to be used as a garage.
Sort of. Currently not, but he said he was going to do something, but there's 2 families. I mean, they're lucky. We could have certainly used those.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, it looks to me like there's 4 garages there, none of which are being used to store vehicles at this point. I've seen it open, and there's all construction materials in one of
He's
them.
clearing that out. I've actually talked to him. Yeah, he's renovating.
He actually parks a car. There's a car parked in front of him.
Oh, yeah. He's going to be using it. That's his plan. Maybe it's going to be in it.
But then you go down, you go south, less than the width of this building, and Greenfield has all his trucks parked up there. So to me, it's one of those kind of odd things that we're talking about how bad the parking is here, yet we have this opportunity to give to the neighbors that parking. Yet I don't know what that's all about. Because I remember when you came last time, and I walk that street all the time. And I sort of like Buckout for the congestion issue because it's how you tell if there's good neighbors. And it's not it's the people in the cars. Because it isn't a 2-way street. It really is a 1-way street. And someone has to pull over. And that's when you find out who's a nice person and who isn't. And so yeah, I remember walking by and saying, my God, that block is it's just got a lot of grungy stuff going on there that's back and forth. And refill trucks over there. And I was like, well, you know, here's a problem that could easily get solved if it became a village issue. Because here these people are yearning for parking for houses, and I assume we're offering this to commerce. I don't even know how it works.
No member of the Board of Trustees here to respond to you. I don't know the situations.
Are they? Okay, but that was just an observation.
Well, one-way street has been lobbied for by Half Moon South, and it's coming when the end of Astor Street gets straightened out, the realignment of Astor Street.
Rough idea, Ben, when do you think that might come to fruition?
Like everything else in the
Working
village.
on it for a year.
Sometime in the future.
I researched the block, and, you know, I asked to talk to neighbors, and nobody said, nothing, there's been no accidents involving either pedestrians or vehicles, any minor things. 5 years. I asked them to look it up, and they got back to me later after they did their search, and came up with nothing. And so, there's a few people that are pushy on occasion, some generally people yell.
Did you include mirrors getting knocked off?
Our reports and our police reports, that's all I know. I mean, I've lived there 6 years, so we've had no problem with not being hit, although we've had mirrors stained, you know, that kind of stuff. So, it happens.
Any other comments from any of the board members? No. Any comments from anyone in the audience on this matter? No. Well, let me get a sense from the board. Do you favor this layout?
Yeah.
Yes?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that.
I actually applaud you for taking it off the street. I mean, I think you were very creative about reworking.
Well, then I think what you have to do is then respond to Hans' comments, but then also look at landscaping and also getting an arborist to look at all those trees and see what their condition is, and as part of your site plan to show exactly what kind of impact you're going to have on any of those trees and whether those trees should remain or not at this point.
And while the arborist is looking at the existing trees, I'd like to see a little screening for the neighbor to the north.
Well, the Japanese maple, it's a lower growing tree, and so when you're walking on the sidewalk, you're on the slope, you're looking down.
I'm talking about when someone's in their own backyard and they're
Yeah,
looking
they
at
got a fence back here that's 6 feet tall.
Oh, well, they can't see it anyway.
They can't see it from their fence unless they're on the second floor, maybe. But then the tree shields the vehicles from
Okay.
them. On the front, their fence, in front of their house, the fence is shorter, and they made comments like, I wish I knew you proposed to have these spaces in the front. I would have built a 6-foot fence all the way up. The reason they didn't do that is for aesthetics. They found out, I guess they didn't find out about it right away. They did get to know previously.
I think what might be helpful then too is to have some photographs the next time from various angles showing what the impact is visually into your neighbor's property, right? As part of the site plan approval. Okay, so
Okay.
I think that's it for them tonight. Thanks. Next item is 2017-33, Corey Owen.
Hi, I'm Jim Teed. I'm with Cronin Engineering. I'm representing this project. And so I guess just to give a brief overview.
Excuse me, Mr. Teague, maybe you want to take the microphone.
Just to give a brief overview, this is part of a subdivision referred to as Westwood, Lot 16. This lot right here is what we're talking about tonight. I hope the board doesn't mind, but I took the site plan that was given and colored it up a little bit just so it'd be easier to see from a distance. And we have a site that's meeting all the current zoning regulations right now. And that's pretty much it. We received some comments from Han regarding some of the engineering. I spoke with Doug, and it seems like, for the most part, they're not going to affect the site layout much. So with that, I would be open to any questions you have.
If I'm not mistaken, the most prominent feature from the road is a 5-foot chain link fence.
On top of the wall.
Somewhere there, right? That dotted line around there.
Yes.
It's on top of what wall?
Oh, I thought you were talking about, there's a railing up here.
No, I'm talking about...
Yeah, you're talking about this.
Yeah.
Yes.
The perimeter. What, is that to keep the people in or people out?
I believe it's to keep the people in. They have some young children that they want to...
But visually from the road, I mean, chain link fences are not my favorite thing to look at.
Yeah, we understand that you haven't seen a landscaping plan yet, so that will be
And the other thing, the drainage, I mean, I happen to remember going out there. There's rock all over the place. Where's the drainage go?
Well, right now, there's a drainage system in the street that goes ultimately to an extended detention pond. That was part of the original
Is there any
subdivision.
on-site drainage?
Yeah, we are proposing, because of the increase in impervious that we have over what was in the approved subdivision, we're taking that increase and directing it to some on-site Coltech units.
If it's all rock.
In this area, we believe that...
You believe or you know?
We don't know. We have to do some testing. But these Coltechs are of the shallower size. They're about 12 to 18 inches tall.
Yeah, but if it's on rock, it's not
Yes,
going.
it's not going to go anywhere. So I think you'd have to do some...
Doug, did you take a look at this?
Yeah, they're gonna be doing testing.
I mean, the reality is we have to do testing to confirm what we believe.
Anybody else concerned about looking at a chain link fence?
It's a very high fence.
Yeah, and
I forget what it
also,
was, 5 foot or 6 foot?
5 feet.
just what does the elevation look like from the road looking up towards the house?
You have your architectural elevations, correct?
I don't know if
Oh.
no, there's a mic here. Yeah.
Steve Lopez is the landscape architect who's working on this. He's going to have his drawings in so they can be reviewed for the next meeting. And I think at that point, the positioning of the fence is going to make a lot more sense because it integrates with the way the landscaping works. The idea is that you won't see the fence from either side. It's just to keep the young kids from being able to wander. They want to be able to have the kids play in the yard without having to worry about them getting out to where the road is or going off on this side. This is about a 20-foot drop.
Well, what's happening in those green areas between the road, both the light and the dark green areas between the road and the house? So to the south.
So we're lower here.
Right, yes,
and then
right,
it's
looking
going
up. So what's
yeah.
going on in that entire green area? Are there any walls in there that are being proposed?
There's a wall right here that's being proposed. So this is like an upper level terraced area coming out of the first floor.
And so then to the left of that,
and then to the left of this, you have a walkout basement to a little bit of a flatter area, just so they can have some yard here, and then catching grade.
and just slopes out. There are rock outcrops there in the darker green
yeah,
area?
it's a little harder to see on this colored plan here, but I don't know.
Do you have your grading plan?
Yeah. On this plan, you can see there's a rock outcrop in here and over in here. So you can so we anticipate that we can get some depth in here for some Coltex, but there's a rock outcrop on the high side as well.
And then what's the elevation difference from the road where those two catch basins are? Right across
So right here we're at elevation 368.
And then what's the base?
Up here at that walkout, we're around 389.
368 to 389, yeah. So that's about 23 feet, 21 feet from the road up to the bottom floor of the
Yes.
house. And then what is it to the peak of the
To
house?
the peak,
39.9.
39 plus the 23?
Yeah.
So it's 62 feet you're looking up from the road up to the top of the house.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the way the lot is.
In addition to the visual of the other visual was the 6-foot retaining wall
Okay.
from the road, and I presume you put a fence on top of that so nobody
Yeah, there'd
falls
be a
off it?
railing, yeah.
How high would that be? A railing or
3 foot.
3 feet.
solid railing or
No.
a railing? Pipe railing?
Patty. Go ahead. There's another microphone here.
I was trying not to talk. I just keep a little profile.
I was just wondering what George felt of the retaining wall.
The type of railing that we do on top of that wall will be the same as we've done on the lots that are down this way. It's a vertical baluster metal rail. Black, fades in fairly well.
Essentially about a 9-foot.
Yeah, at the max. I mean, it's, at this end, it's 0. So it's one section and
Given
then
the topography as you described with the fence and the whatever else aspects of the location, what's the visual from the road of that 6 foot and 3 foot? What does it look like from the road?
I mean, I can describe it, but I think it would be better if I did a couple of sections for you and showed that at the next meeting. I think that'll give a more graphic understanding of how that really works.
Who was the architect for this? Are you?
Laura Wakefield is the architect.
Okay, so is she going to be presenting
She
this?
can be here if you'd like. We're not,
Okay,
we
and
weren't
who-
doing, we're doing engineering tonight.
So you're responsible for the engineering,
Yeah, I'm with Cronin Engineering.
and you'll be carrying this through construction?
Yeah.
Now, with rock all around, is there any danger of that, I don't know how far the rock goes, that becoming a bathtub where your current drainage is, where your current Coltec is?
Right here?
Yeah.
No, it's continuing down the hill, so. In the Coltex can only, whatever they
Is there an
call it.
overflow that it may go someplace instead of ponding?
Yeah,
I
like I
mean,
said,
an overflow from the Coltec.
yeah, this portion of roof is being collected and directed to the Coltex.
And then it's
And once
overflow?
they fill up, they'll overflow and then come out to the street drainage and continue on to the extended detention pond as intended by the subdivision, yeah.
It'll be piped to that catch basin on the
Yes.
street?
I will request what we requested from the others that have decided to build on this, in this subdivision, expressly for the retaining wall that you're proposing, that visuals be done, elevations, you had to do them before. We request the same kind of thing so that we can understand what this is going to look like from the street.
Okay.
And that will include landscaping, everything, so that there is a strong understanding of what you are actually presenting.
Sure, absolutely. We understood that that Han was going to be doing some utility reviews, so we wanted to make sure there was also no conflicts with landscaping and what we were proposing. And it seems like, for the most part, we're okay with the locations.
Yeah, you gotta work out this swale we talked about.
Yes, yeah, we talked a little bit about maybe moving this swale, so.
Any other comments from any of the board
I'm
members?
just anxious to see how you're going to hide that fence that's all around the property.
Okay.
That is, you're going to see that right away.
It's going right through the right rock outcrop too, so you're not going to be able to screen much close to the fence there.
Can't plant on rock.
Yeah, it's right through this area, I think is
Also to the left too, it's all
Right
rock
through here.
outcrop there. Right there, it's all rock outcrop.
But there is this area between the road and the rock.
Yeah. What's the difference in elevation from the road to the fence? To the base of
Right,
the fence?
if we're talking about the same location where you were looking at
Mhm.
before, we were at 368 and the fence is 372, about right here.
Okay, so it's 4 feet. Again, it's 6-foot high fence?
5 feet.
5 foot, so it's 9 feet. Okay. Any other comments from?
Now, when you do it, when the fence gets to the rock, is the fence gonna follow the contour of the rock, or you're gonna try to make the fence level, if you know what I mean?
I would imagine that it would follow the contour of the rock.
Again, this should be really
Yes.
described in detail,
Understood.
three-dimensionally, so everyone comprehends what's going on.
Any other comments? Any comments from anyone in the audience? No, I guess we'll then respond to our comments and to Hans' comments, and we should have the architect here next time, and also Mr. Lopez with the landscape plan.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, next item is 2017-32, David and Bridget Gaucho, 83 Riverview Road. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Last time you were here, you did a pool similar to this.
I do more than pools.
Did your kid color this one?
It looks it, doesn't it? That was a quickie right before I left today. I'm Troy Wojciechowski, engineer for the applicant, David and Bridget Gouchot. Steve Griggs is also here tonight. He's the builder. He might look familiar as well. The project before you tonight is for an in-ground pool and adjacent patio. We've learned a lot since our last project with the board as far as pools go. And this is about the third or fourth iteration with the Gouchots. Their heart was actually set on something much larger, and I cautioned them, based on my recent experience, that you really can't go that large with it. So we went through a couple iterations, and we settled on this at first. And this was really closest to their dream pool. But as you can see, we would have needed a side yard setback variance, still need the coverage variance. This pool and patio was a little bit bigger than the current iteration. Met with Ed briefly, kind of gave me that look, are you kidding me? So basically went back to the Gouchots and came up with the current plan before you. This layout is very similar to the last project I had with the board. it's more of a natural shaped pool, and, you know, a very modest patio to go along with it. The pool is, you know, it's an interesting piece of property, interesting kind of in a bad way. There's rock outcrops, a lot of different things in a way for a pool. But this design actually works out very well. It nestles the pool into the hillside adjacent to the rock outcrop. The pool is very close to the back of the house and the patio, which I recall from our last project was important with respect to the coverage variance that we're going to need from the ZBA and the planning board's input with respect to that. Same deal, we have the Coltech storm rechargers in this area. We've already done test pits and perk tests out there, and we did find soil. I was kind of surprised, actually, considering the rock that you see here. And it perked very well, so we're actually able to capture the runoff from the patio up through the 100-year storm and completely recharge it into the ground. We're proposing landscaping up in this area. Of course, we have, you know, shrubs and that type of ornamental landscaping near the pool, but we have some Norway spruce and some river birch, more for screening, things like that. The Gouchos currently have a nice solid wood fence. We have to look a little bit at I think the side yard fences might be deer fence that we have to bring up to pool code. But certainly along the front and the rear, a really nice solid wood fence. Again, as I said, the allowable coverage is 16%. It's a 20,000 square foot lot, and we're proposing coverage of about 19.9%. So we shrunk it down, we feel, to a point that the zoning board would consider issuing a coverage variance. So that's our goal for tonight, is really to get the initial input from the board and then proceed on to the ZBA and see how we make out there with the coverage variance. Received Doug's comment letter this morning. I think it was all pretty straightforward technical stuff, which I didn't really see any issues with any of the comments.
Right, and you received also the comments then from Munn's Associates with regard to the landscaping.
Correct, right.
Okay.
And I think that the important thing, she noted that we don't have to remove any trees for this location.
Any comments from any of the board members?
The west side of the pool butts against the rock.
Yeah, right here.
Is that going to be part of the wall of the pool? Or,
Yeah,
I mean, don't come back that you had to raise the pool 5 feet because of the rock.
No, I think
Someone else did that. I mean,
Steve's design with the pool.
how are you gonna? I mean,
Hi,
my
Steve
experience
Briggs.
of rock is that it's not vertical. I mean,
It's only 3.5, Caesar.
It's only 3.5. No, we're gonna actually build it into the rock. We're gonna have to hammer rock. We know there's rock
You're
there.
gonna blast?
Sure, dynamite.
No, I'm not kidding.
Are you aware that you only have 30?
39 days, the new law. If it's not done in 39 days, Mr. Guscio will be in the poorhouse. Yeah, we're trying to tuck it right into the rock there, make it part of the pool.
Okay. See, are you going to blast? I'll ask again.
No, we're not gonna blast.
So the rock is fairly vertical? I mean, otherwise the toe of the rock is going to
It's
come
gonna
into...
have to be, the whole backyard's rock. We have to hammer anyway. We're gonna probably cut off part of the rock and tuck it into the hill, make it as a backdrop for the pool, yes.
Any other comments?
You're going to keep it at the elevation shown, though, the pool?
Absolutely.
No one with comments? Any comments from anyone in the audience?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you have a mic?
Come up, yes, please take the mic. Please state your
Plenty
name
of time
and
to
address.
rehearse.
We are the neighbors at 81 Riverview Road, and we love our neighbors. We want them to have what
And your
they
name,
want.
please?
What's that? Paula Vale, 81 Riverview Road. So we are downhill. If you're familiar with Riverview, as you know, it's ledge. We're down here. So that's where that deer fence is. And we are the repository for a lot of water in the neighborhood. The two neighbors behind us on Janet Terrace. And we have concerns about drainage as it relates to this pool. Not only is on ledge, the increase in impervious coverage, and what would happen when we are downhill at our house and our property, taking on this water, because 100-year storms are happening every couple of months these days. So we really want this plan to come back with a more aggressive drainage system that can not only skirt drain, but there's one that is right here. Seems to be, while it's going into the property or just right down the hill. So when I was listening to what you were talking about with Dearman, and you're talking about these drains that are going out to the street, I don't see that in this drawing, and I would like to make sure that there is more excessive drainage to protect any land of
Just
the
have this
road.
a little further from the mic, please.
Is that better?
Yeah,
Is that better?
exactly.
Sorry. So is that what I do? Questions? or-
Doug, you got any comments?
Yeah.
Just on the drainage?
Yeah, we're still reviewing it, but when we're done, it'll be very sufficient to.
In addition to what's being proposed here, you'll have additional drainage because our
Well,
property line,
it's what's required, but it's gonna be up to the 100-year storm event.
okay.
For the new
For the,
new development, not for the existing development.
correct.
Okay, and so as we're looking at these drawings, I just want to make sure that we're looking over that deer fence, kind of down that hill at the property that's sitting there, because it really has become, for both Janet Terrace and other houses around us, it's just a stream during some of the storms, and while we have all of our drainage in there,
I'll look at
it's a concern of ours.
I'll go look at that.
And speaking of, where does the pool drainage go? And what kind of filter you have for you have a backwash filter, or is it?
Yeah, I don't believe we're backwashing. I think it's a sand filter, correct?
Sand filter.
There's no backwashing for it. But the
You don't
provision,
backwash a sand filter?
not like a,
Cartridge filter.
Oh, cartridge, thank you.
oh, it's gonna be cartridge, okay. But yes, Bridget and David don't want to flood out their neighbors, that's for sure. So we're gonna work with Doug and make sure that we take care of that. There's, certain things we can do.
And if you drain the pool, where does that go?
If we drain the pool, I don't know that we'd have to drain the pool. We'd have to probably truck it off.
No, yeah. One of Doug's comments is that our requirement is to show a drainage pipe to a system.
Okay.
Or how you're gonna.
Or how you're gonna drain it.
Okay, well, I know there's a catch basin right out front, so we can talk to the village about a provision to tie into that. Certainly the capacity of the Coltex wouldn't handle, the volume of a pool, but we'll work with the village with that. In this case, unlike the last project, I believe there is a catch basin right out front.
Are you requesting that they do borings, Doug, for the pool and also for the Coltech
You
units?
guys provide us those? I gotta-
He's done test holes for the Coltech.
Yes, the results, in fact, are on this sheet right here, the site plan.
It says that existing coverage right now is 3,200 square feet, and you're proposing 3,999. So can you show what is the 800 square feet of impervious surface that you're adding? Where is it located? Is it just the pool and the patio?
It's just the pool
Is
and
there
the
anything else?
patio. In fact, we're removing a portion of the existing patio to kind of reduce it and help out that a little bit. But it's solely the pool and the adjacent patio.
You're still 25% over coverage. I mean, that's going to be a zoning board issue for you. I think what you ought to do is come back here one more time, address these comments, many of these comments that Doug has, and come back with the site plan. We'll take a look at that, and then maybe at that point, send you out to the ZBA.
Does it make sense for us to go to the ZBA and see if they would consider it? I mean,
I would send them just because.
yeah, it's kind of a,
coverage.
yeah, and I think the board's comfortable with the style of pool from our last project, and I don't know if anyone's seen the finished product, but we can bring photos next time. It really came out really nice.
Was it built to what was drawn?
Well, see, tell the truth.
Absolutely. Public, I gotta tell you, Manny and Ed were great the whole project.
I don't say that.
No, they did, they really, it was a tough site, and it came out spectacular.
No, they had a few hiccups.
Spectacular job, though.
Came out nice. Bring a
Very
picture.
nice, I will.
Pat, Sarah just pointed out that there is no December ZBA
ZBA?
meeting. Yes, so.
Oh.
No, so they
So then
would,
you-
if you sent them now, they could make the November one.
Oh, they can make the November meeting.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, they have to wait 2 months.
Oh, okay. So, all right, so why don't you then go to the ZBA and see what they have to say?
How did he get offered December?
Calling you on board.
Do they get paid for it too?
Because they need Christmas time. That's
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
And well, I think we have one more item then. Right, Marianne, you wanted to discuss this,
Oh,
the article, the zoning code?
I don't know that I wanted to discuss it so much, but I'll tell you what it is, I'll cue it up. Hold on a minute. See if I can- yeah, there's a, request to the, a request was made to the Board of Trustees to rezone the Ardsley on Hudson train station to permit more uses there than just as a train station and post office. And the person came in, and there's a person who's got a very long-term lease from Metro North or Penn Central, whoever owns the, from the railroad for the building, and he came then to the...
Is this for the station itself or that building off
No, the station,
to the south?
the train station where the post office is now. And asked the Board of Trustees to consider the same kind of zoning amendment that they enacted for the downtown train the train station, the Irvington train station. And the board did, change it a little bit from that, from that in a couple of ways. One, in some of the uses that were permitted there weren't permitted here. Most of the uses were allowed. And then also, it was made clear in this amendment, because of the issue that arose with the Irvington train station, that the building can't be changed at all. So this language is, one of the conditions for the special permit would be it's on page 3 of the draft that's there, that it would be the planning board that would grant special permits for any of these uses. Any use would have to be by special permit. And the conditions, the first condition would be that the proposed use will preserve the exterior of the former train station in its entirety and will not require any changes to the exterior of the building other than the signs permitted under this chapter. And then the other conditions would be that the proposed use will have a minimal vehicular impact on the surrounding area, that there's adequate off-street parking for the proposed use, and that adequate provision is made for the storage and collection of garbage and recyclables. Now, the board had a couple of work sessions on this before they settled on the amendment that they would be having the hearing on, and Hudson House and the Ardsley Park Property Owners Association participated in both of those meetings and made quite a few suggestions. Mostly, Hudson House made a very formal proposal that the board went through and took some of their changes, didn't take others of the changes, and whatever. And so this is the draft amendment they came up with. And any amendment to the zoning code that's brought on by petition under our code has to be referred to the planning board for its report, if you want to give one. And so that's why it's here. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
The new use will require parking. And where's the parking going to come from if there's going to be parking taking away from people who park?
No, it wouldn't take any parking away. The guy has, I think it was 15 parking spaces he also got from man, what was the number? Was it 15 or 8? But there's a certain number of parking spaces that he got from
whom?
The railroad.
So that's 15 or 8 spaces that commuters wouldn't use anymore.
No, I think it's, no, it's an area that would be improved. No, they're not parking spaces that exist now.
Oh, that grassy area?
Yeah.
That would be paved.
And as I recall, you know what, I didn't bring my file with me on this. I didn't realize that you would want me to discuss, but I could have showed you the picture, but
I know the area
as
you're
I
talking about. It
recall,
has
it's
to be
one of the
developed.
terms of the lease that he has to fix it up and make it work for parking. And then it's also conceivable that there would be uses that don't really require any parking. You know, well, if it's you use kind of pass-through use, maybe. Well, one of the things that they're talking about, well, the uses that he did talk about were there's an architect who wanted to have an office there. That was a single architect wanted to have an office there. They wanted to keep the post office there, and then they're also talking about a coffee shop that would, you know, service people getting on and off the train.
Did Hudson North want their bridge restored? Not Hudson North, Hudson House.
You know what? I don't know what's happening with that. Oh, that not from this guy. I mean, there's a.
Yeah, they've got their own, I don't think it's going back.
Yeah, that, you know, there was, but that's not related to this, but there was a point at which they had me, I was reviewing all of these easement agreements for them to be able to do it, and then it just stopped about
Well, they found that
quite a few years ago. I don't, well, they did get a pretty big settlement out of, that settlement, they once, you know, decent amount of money, but I haven't heard anything probably 5 years.
So nothing inside of this affects the other building, the other outbuilding that's adjacent to the train station?
No.
That's what I'm-
So the only thing that would be what would happen is these would be the use regulations for only, it's on here,
The station itself.
the train station building and the adjacent land included in the lease, which was pretty much
parking
their
area.
parking area.
Because that other building is pretty big. That, I think Hudson House uses it as a storage.
Oh, yeah, but that's not covered by this. My guess is it's probably not in the railroad district anyway.
Okay.
It's not.
Yeah, so it's not in the railroad district.
Also, Mary
Anyway, and these uses are also allowed only in the existing building.
Now, that movie that was filmed there a few years ago or whatever, they covered up there's a portico, where the portico used to be, they put a platform there. Is that going to remain there, or are they going to fix it to make it, I don't think it's other than anything other than plywood or something.
No, they
Stability of it.
rebuilt the portico, and part of the permits that they're gonna be coming forth will have that repair as well.
But that wouldn't be part of this law.
So is there some concept plan that's already been produced by this person?
No, it's just he did say that he had the architect's office, and otherwise it seems like he's open about it. You know, and actually open enough that he didn't want to be tied into uses, you know, so you could zone it by saying, yeah, okay, we'll permit the post office and our professional office and Z use, you know, that he's already identified, but he wanted to keep it more open than that.
Is there some kind of, I don't know what we would call it, but there's some kind of covenant or something, the post office has to be there? Because I know in Harriman, when Harriman deeded over his land, the post office had to be there. Is this-
Yeah, no, he did enter into a lease with them for them to stay, but I know the Hudson House people really wanted to stay, but I don't think they could. There isn't any covenant like that. Although this guy's also seems to be interested in having the post office stay, and he got them to agree to lease it. But I think it might have been, could have been for a year. I'm not sure about that. But they do not know. It isn't that they have to be there.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
It's a separate zip code.
Yeah. No, this limited service carry-out restaurant, so is this use going to be applicable to any other district other than this portion of the railroad district?
It's only here.
It's only.
And that was originally the way it was drafted was restaurant, and there was some concern notify some of the neighbors that if we're a restaurant, then maybe they'd be able to get a liquor license, and then you'd have whatever. So we decided to make it narrower, and then you'll see that the term is also defined, limited service carry-out restaurant, as an establishment primarily engaged in the on-site preparation and retail sale of carry-out food and beverage products from a counter-type installation for consumption off the premises, but which may also include the incidental sale of ready-to-consume food and beverages for consumption on the premises. Such establishments shall be limited to specialty delicatessens, coffee shops, ice cream shops, pizzerias, and bakeries, but exclude restaurants and formula fast food establishments.
I was trying to find, is there a definition of a restaurant in the ordinance?
In our code,
No,
no.
there isn't.
There is, however, a definition of formula fast food establishment.
Right.
They're not allowed.
They're not allowed anywhere in the village yet. So I guess in a way, that's is redundant. It doesn't really need to be there, but it's just to increase the comfort level.
What doesn't need to be there?
That excluding formula fast food establishments because they're otherwise not allowed, so.
As the land use attorney told me once in the city, he said, that's just additional garlic.
Well, I was just curious.
It's a good way of putting it.
Do you need to define restaurant because you're saying it excludes restaurants? Well, how do you define a restaurant? How do you differentiate a restaurant from this limited service carry-out restaurant?
I don't know. It's not. There's actually a lot of terms in the code that aren't defined. Like banks. Just so you know them when you see them.
What about
There's
this
the restaurant at the Dobbs Ferry train station, which became a restaurant for social.
Yeah, and I think there was some concern that that might not be the most appropriate location for it.
Well, it's just how do you know it's not a restaurant? That's.
Yeah, but you know what, Pat? It already defines it. It can only be an establishment. The main part of the definition is the beginning. You would be right if that was the only definition. It excludes a restaurant, but it's pretty well defined what it is.
I think Caesar has a good point, though, is that it really does go back to the actual space that's there. So the concept that someone would want to put a restaurant there, they just did not work.
By the time you put a kitchen in, is where you're going to sit.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to figure out how you would do it also, because since you can't modify the exterior of the building. But
Also, so what about this outdoor seating area? Where is that going, where would they put that?
In the parking lot.
Yeah, what will be the limits?
I think, isn't there space between the garage and the station? I don't know where they had it in mind. They may not have it.
Yeah.
Well, it's subject to approval, whatever it is, so.
Right, everything. It leaves a lot up to us because there is no parking requirement for the limited service carry-out restaurant.
And
There's parking requirements for other uses, but not for that, so.
Correct, just like in the entire village, there's no
parking
requirement for restaurants.
Under 100 seats.
Yeah, if it's over 100, right?
alcoholic beverages, they would have to get.
You cannot, we
license.
can't regulate alcoholic beverage. That was one thing Hudson House wanted us to specify, that there couldn't be alcoholic beverages. You can't zone that. It's totally preempted by the state, and any place that's tried to say no alcoholic beverage. That doesn't mean that the state necessarily allows it. Probably, the state would only allow it in a use that they allow liquor to be sold, and it's doubtful that they would in any of these. But it's irrelevant. We can't regulate. But that was also one of the reasons that restaurants weren't included, because clearly restaurants can get liquor licenses.
Any comments anyone wants to make back to the board?
No.
I have an issue with the traffic in that area, going down to the train station. Almost all of Ardsley Park goes down to train station to pick up their mail all day, various times of the day. And sometimes there's 3 and 4 cars backed up, parked, not in spaces, but just to run in to pick up their mail. It gets pretty crowded down there. and then you've got the garage from Hudson House right across from the train station, that people are coming in and out of that garage all day long.
Well, I mean, two of the conditions for granting a special permit are that the board would have to be satisfied that the proposed use will have minimal vehicular impact on the surrounding area, and that there's adequate off-street parking for it.
So
you
just,
have to
does this
make
guy
that
have a concept
determination.
plan? I mean, what is he really trying to do here? What are they really trying to do here? Do they want a coffee shop that just caters to people who are getting on and off the train, or that live at the Hudson House? Are they looking to draw people down there? I mean,
No, the thinking,
Nobody could have tried down there for mercy.
yeah,
There's-
well,
but a lot of those
that
people
was
could be
one of the
getting on and off
things, I mean,
train,
one
too.
of the thoughts actually was, and I don't know whether it's still on the table, was that Mercy might have a coffee shop there, but sometime, and then they weren't interested, they were interested, but anyway. But that's what they're talking about, is a coffee shop for people getting off the train. A lot of the train stations have coffee shops. You know, all over, Mount Kisco
Mercy has to
and
put the sidewalk in.
Hartsdale and whatever. Pardon?
Mercy has to put the sidewalk in.
I'm working on it.
Irvington has one too.
Yeah, Irvington train station, yeah.
But you've got the Irvington train station, you have the park, Matheson Park, right next to it. People go in there, pick up their coffee, and go into the park with their strollers.
You know, but Irvington does, people do use that, commuters use that for coffee. So it does serve that purpose. And thankfully they didn't do the dorm.
Under this law, they wouldn't be able
All right,
to.
thank you. Getting into the fourth inning.
What's the score?
I have no idea.
Well, wait, how can you?
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Yeah, he scored twice in the first inning out of garbage.
Here, American League. Here's the American League team. Again, I don't know. I don't really have any comments other than it would be nice to see what the concept is of what this person is really trying to do here.
Well, I told you, I mean, that's what he said he wants to do. He's very specific, the architect's office and a
And
coffee shop.
he's gonna put parking down there too. Insane.
You know what, I didn't pay a lot of attention to that, Pat, but I got the sense he did. I thought maybe under the lease he had to.
And
I
then
don't remember.
That was my perception.
You know what, Pat, I'll look at it and I'll send an email around tomorrow about that, because I could be wrong about what the.
When I say concept, did he present a concept plan or anything to the board?
No,
Site plan?
no,
or anything?
no.
So I'm just wondering, because now, if he has to provide parking there, then how do you police that to keep commuter parkers out of there?
Same way Irvington Station, the yoga place.
How do they do that?
I have no idea.
Well, maybe do I, because I don't commute, so how do you?
No one parks there.
The special permit only allows the parking for the tenants of the building and the patrons of the building.
His question was, how do you
And-
keep Joe Commuter out of there?
Yeah, that's their job.
There's a little sign that says, you know,
Because it's not gonna be.
we can tow your car.
No, but it's the
Yeah, that's
working,
what they're gonna have to do.
It's happened to me.
and that's what.
Did you get towed? Yeah?
You know what, actually, it was at a restaurant, and,
Oh, I thought you meant down here.
and the tow truck was outside of this lot, and what they did is they didn't take your car, they booted it, and they wait till you get out there, and then they're like, you know, that'll be $600. What?
Well, that's a boot.
Yeah, it was expensive gas.
Yeah.
It wasn't $600, whatever it was, but
Yeah.
it was ridiculous. The guy just sat there in the truck and just collected money. Great.
So.
Sure,
is it-
send me whatever.
Yeah, I'll send that, but what should I
Make it a
say
little clearer
to
on the
the,
parking.
just say the planning board had no issues with it, or what?
A little clarity on the parking.
Okay.
Because in like manner too, then people who go into that shop could be parking in commuter spaces if there's a commuter space that's available. And then how do you police that? I mean, they may not be there that long, but you're taking a space, then somebody may be coming down the train looking for a space, so I think you got it. That's why I said, what is this guy trying to do? Is he trying to draw people down there? Or just trying to get the people who are going down there to begin with to use his facility. But, okay. Adjourn.